Hey guys, I'm down here. This is gonna be my chapter review to My Hero Academia or Boku no Hero Academia 248 one by one. And this was a good chapter. I enjoyed it. Apologies if there's noise in the back. My neighbor seems to be watching Avengers constantly over the last year, and it's a little bit annoying, but what can you do? And yes, so going into what the chapter was about. So we start off with a nice, not even color spread, just a single cover page of the Ryukyu team. So we have Ryukyu in the back with her in her dragon form flying through the city. We have, I think her name is Nejire, just kind of hovering around behind Ochako, who's at the front, and then we have Suyu just clinging to a building in the on the left of or on the right of Ochako herself. Cool. So then we come into the chapter, and it's Deku kind of narrating over himself, thinking in a monologue kind of thing, typical Deku style. And he's talking about how it's not about the fact that he never had a sense of urgency around his quirk. It's the fact that because he inherited it so late, everybody else is like they'd gained so much more experience in regards to their quirk. They were thinking about where it could take them, whereas he was just simply thinking about I've obtained a freaking quirk. What the hell am I supposed to do with it? So whereas they were kind of maneuvering and taking it other places, he was just kind of figuring out what place he was in to begin with. And he talks about how he learned to control One for All, along with Full Cowl, and now he has the muscle memory so that he can use Full Cowl subconsciously. But now he has to understand how to manifest six quirks as quickly as possible, while also being in control of it to the extent that he's in control of his Full Cowl at the moment, so he can use it subconsciously. It's all within muscle memory, and it's not something he has to necessarily think about. And we come back to that when Endeavor kind of shows how he saves that lady from the truck running her over. He's like, you can't be blaming the fact that it takes you longer to utilize one of your quirks than another. It takes you longer to dress up in the winter than it takes you in the summer. That's not an excuse. Are you going to use that excuse when someone's been run over and when someone's been crushed to death or something like that? That's not an excuse you can use. You can't say just because I was too slow because of things that I didn't train out. You have to train those things out now. That's what he's telling them. He's like, Bakugo, if it's taking you long to put your panties on, think about it. Do something about it. Put your panties on earlier. Do something that when you're running or something like that, you can burn your clothes off and your panties are already on. A lot like Endeavor actually. I think we saw him with a suit on a couple of chapters ago, and when he assumed when he put his flames around himself, when he activated his quirk, his suit kind of just melted away and showed his jumpsuit beneath. Which is awesome. That's kind of what I think Bakugo needs to learn at this point as well. We see this guy escaping from the squad from Shoto, Deku, Bakugo, and Endeavor. And one point I'd like to mention here is whenever we see two instances of it this chapter. Whenever Endeavor's being followed by the kids, so Endeavor apprehends this guy faster than the kids. They don't win that easily. But Bakugo is always the first to land, and he's always there, just like, yo, behind Endeavor, what's up? And then Deku comes second, and usually Shoto is third. So we just get that kind of clarification again in terms of maneuverability. Bakugo is quite a bit ahead of these two. Then obviously Deku, because of his insane strength and his insane leg strength, he's just behind Bakugo. And then there's Shoto, who doesn't have really the most maneuverable quirk unless he learns to utilize his flames in a more condensed and focused fashion, like he mentions in this chapter. So Endeavor's like, he takes a little bit of the mick out of the kids. He's like, oh, it looks like you were one step behind. This is where Bakugo uses that excuse of, it takes me time to switch into my into high gear in the winter. Actually, it's not even about his clothing, I don't think. I think it's because of the winter weather. It takes him longer to get his quirk activating at a higher heat capacity, so a higher explosive capacity, is what I'm getting from this. It takes some time switching to high gear in the winter. Yeah, I think that's what it is. And this is where Shoto's like, Bakugo, have you realized? And I loved Bakugo's response. He's like, there ain't a damn thing that you'd realize before me. But if you did, it would. If it makes you feel better, say it. And I was like, that's pretty funny. But Shoto here this is what I'm talking about. He makes mention of the fact that Endeavor emits those flames from his feet. And, he's taking that jet burn thing he used in Kyushu and all that stuff and compressing it, using it. But essentially what he's saying is he's storing a large amount of like his heat capacity, his ability to control heat in his feet, in his legs, and then he's condensing it and exploding it out through his feet in a focused, sharp fashion. But it allows him incredible precision and movement through the air, which is what he's been doing. And Bakugo's just looking at him like, dude, it's taken you this long to realize that. Shoto is obviously like, yeah, because I sure took the long way around. But it turns out that Shoto might have actually taken the he might have actually traveled the most distance, because of his lack of a maneuverable quirk. But that's something he's going to have to once again out train, which I think was an undertone in this chapter. Anyway, Shoto kind of realizes here, and this comes back to the fact that Shoto never really utilized his flame quirk as often. He didn't train it out as much as he should have done, because he was trying to flip the bird to his dad and be like, no, I'm not going to use your fire power, you ass hat. But now he's seeing the repercussions of that, in the sense of he's not as controlled with his flames as he is with his ice. So whereas he can ice man himself and create ice slides and ice ramparts and shit with his ice side, he can't really control his flame side as well. Especially in terms of fine control like he would need for his legs and his feet if he didn't want to blow his feet off. So the Endeavor's sidekick is like, yeah, you guys can go, I'll take care of this criminal. And the kids go back and try to help out again. I try to help Endeavor out again. Here you see Deku kind of just thanking, I think he says, I'm not sure what he actually says here. He looks back at the sidekick, so I thought he was thanking him, but it doesn't look like he's thanking him at all. And they resume their chase of Endeavor. Endeavor talks about Kyushu here, talking about how he had Hawks with him and they could divide the tasks between themselves. But heroes will have to be able to do everything by their onesies if they want to be successful, if they want to be the top hero, which all of these kids really want to be. And he also makes mention of here, he's like, that guy those guys that were the glass villain subordinates, I knew they were there. It's not like you guys were saving me from anything. And I like how Bakugo's like, that's petty, and then Deku's behind him like, really, Bakugo? Anyway, we have Endeavor showing here how much of he's actually a really good teacher, and this is something that a lot of people are surprised by. But judging by his characteristics, in terms of he's a very hard worker, he's someone who's always been working harder to try and get above All Might. And All Might's the same in the sense of he's a hard worker. He's not someone who was just a genius per se, as in like he worked hard to be able to save as many people as he did. But in the sense of he's a genius because he was instantly able to utilize his quirk. I think All Might's mentioned it a couple times that he never struggled as much as Deku has in terms of going 100% on his quirk. His body just acclimated to the quirk so quickly, so naturally, that he was able to utilize the quirk very quickly after having been given it. So that's the difference in terms of All Might. He was still a hard worker in terms of helping people out, going through injury, fighting the most difficult villain you could possibly ask to fight against, all the history behind his quirk and stuff, his mentor being murdered, all that stuff. He's a very hard worker, but in terms of utilizing your quirk and understanding your quirk, he doesn't have the understanding that Endeavor has over learning how to utilize a quirk. And what all three of these kids need is someone who understands how to train a quirk to the point where they have fine control and gross control over it, right? And All Might doesn't have that. He might be a great teacher, he might be a great hero, but he doesn't have that experience. Whereas Endeavor totally does, because if he doesn't utilize his quirk in the way that he does, he'd be killing himself almost every time he'd be using it. He'd go into heat syncope, drop dead, and then he'd get roasted by whoever was fighting him. So he makes mention he is very analytical, very attentive to detail. And he says here, Bakugo, you came here to learn what you were incapable of doing. Your movement speed is very good. It leaves nothing to be desired for a rookie and all that good stuff. But right now, you won't be able to surpass me. And the reason why is like, Bakugo here is like, I told you in the winter it takes me longer to get going. And this is where we see Endeavor stop a truck with his bare hands. I'm like, this guy's a tank. He's like, are you still going to make that excuse when you don't make it in time to help someone? In school, like your GPA, you might lose points on that. But over here, it's not points. It's not little kind of imaginary Reddit likes or anything like that you'll lose out on when you take a moment to get into high gear. What's going to be lost in this situation is someone's life. And I love how Endeavor's teaching the kids. He's like, what he's trying to instill in them first off is, it's not as easy as you think. You don't just become a number one hero. He's trying to also instill in them that, your quirks are your quirks, and you've been blessed with them and all that good stuff. You can learn to utilize them. You've all got a good amount of control, but what you need to do is you need to master it. everything needs to be subconscious, from the finest movements in terms of whether Bakugo wanted to explode from one finger and like shoot someone McCree style, or whether he wanted to cause a citywide explosion or anything like that. I doubt he could do that. Well, actually, maybe if his quirk kind of evolved a little bit, but we don't know whether that's going to happen or not. But he's trying to tell them that, you know, you need to master every element of your quirk in order to be the best possible service to the rest of humanity as you can be. And once again, we see Bakugo arrives first. Then it looks like once again Deku-ish and Shoto seem to arrive at the same time, but Endeavor here saves their asses. So Endeavor here tells actually Shoto and Bakugo, because they both actually need the same kind of training, in the sense of their assignment is now store up energy and release it, and you have to learn how to condense your power and also draw out your maximum firepower in an instant. So what he's saying is, and I like the fact that Deku once again is helping out the lady who was almost run over. The guy in the truck is just like bowing down to the lady like, shit, sorry about that. I'm like, you know, at least buy her a meal, you almost killed her. But what he's instilling in both Shoto and Bakugo is focus on one of those things first, practice it repeatedly until you can do it without thinking, add it to your arsenal, then focus on the next thing. So that's he's very methodical in that sense. Like, and we come back to this later. Deku talks about parallel thinking, you know, doing things in conjunction. I want to learn to control my secondary quirk as well as furthering my primary quirk. So he's been kind of accelerating very slowly in each of those, because he's paying attention to both parallel lines, if you want, at the same damn time. But what Endeavor is saying is max out your skill tree in one of them. Once you've done that and it's become subconscious, go to the next skill, max out your skill tree in that, and then just accumulate skills as you go on. So accumulate all those experiences, layer it like a freaking sandwich, and you're good. You're going to be amazing. And to be fair, I mean, like, I kind of agree with Endeavor in this sense, you know. Even when you're learning, it's like learn bits of the syllabus at one time, like chunk. It's called chunking, right? Chunk one part of the syllabus, master that, go to the next, master that, go to the next. And that's typically well, it depends on what type of person you are, but that's what's worked for Endeavor, and that's what he's telling these kids to do. And it seems to be something that each of these kids would benefit from, to be honest. Shoto, because he has two freaking quirks, essentially flame and ice, so he's already kind of chunked the ice side. He needs to chunk that flame side of his and really learn to master that. And even within that, he can chunk it down even further, in the sense of chunk my firepower, learn how to master the most explosive power I can emit at any one time, then focus on, you know, directing that through my feet and making it very focused, making it directional so that I can move in a certain direction, and then emit both of those things at the same time. So maximum power in one direction, focused at my feet, the soles of my feet, like chakra, you know, and go exactly where I need to go. So I love the fact that Endeavor's teaching them this way. Bakugo as well, exactly the same as Shoto, only he doesn't need to utilize it with two different quirks essentially, but he still needs to focus on emitting the maximum amount of power through his legs, through his feet, in order to propel himself as fast and as quickly as possible to wherever he needs to go. I love to hear how Deku's like, oh, that almost sounds like your the trick behind your AP shot. And I love the fact that what's his name, Bakugo, shudders here, and he's pissed off as well. He's like, stay away from me, you nerd. Stay away from me, you weirdo. Why do you know about that? So then we get a very nice kind of, everyone stood on the roof. Everyone's either sat or stood on the roof. They're eating some buns by the looks of things. And Endeavor's just talking to them. He's talking to Shoto. He's like, you're already halfway there with those requirements. You already know how to do that with all of your ice-based powers. So just essentially take that mental imagery and apply it to your flame-based powers. And then he speaks to Deku. He's like, alright, you're able to momentarily raise your power level. That's something you can do, right? In full Cal, we know he can do that. And he's like, can you do it subconsciously? Yes, he can. He can't do that for his air-based ability, which is Air Force. So Endeavor's like, alright, cool. First things first is I want you to be able to train yourself to be able to use that Air Force thing subconsciously. I don't want you to be stood there concentrating to like fuck in order to release like 1% of your Air Force. I want you to be able to just shoot that out of whim, like while you're running, go pew, 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 pew. That would be awesome. Imagine that, like a 5-finger death punch kind of thing. But yeah, so he's like, forget about that secondary part of your quirk for now. Train your Air Force to the max out that chunk of your quirk, get it so that it's completely mastered. You've obtained mastery in that, and then you're good. Deku asks about, what about parallel What about parallel thinking? And Endeavor essentially says, you know what, let's not do that. Master the little bits and pieces. He gives an example here of driving a car. You master your steering, you master your accelerating, braking, checking your window, checking your mirrors, checking your rear view, all turns and stuff like that, reverse parking, all that shit. He's like, chunk it into pieces, break it down into pieces, master each of those individual paths, expand your skill tree in those. And what you need to do is become subconsciously amazing at that thing. So basically, if you need to become awesome at two things, master one, add that to your arsenal, then just add one more thing. So he makes mention here of, there are exceptions to this rule, thinking about All Might. But I think, once again, like, in regards to the quirk, yeah, All Might was a genius. He was just able to utilize it all, but I'm not sure how Endeavor knew that, unless this is Deku thinking it. But Endeavor just says here, this is how I work, this is how I've done things. I just do things based off of experience, accumulating as much experience as I can for one skill, mastering that, going to the next, accumulating more skill. So I like the fact that here he's like, it's okay to make as many mistakes as you need to. You three kids failing or succeeding doesn't really affect my work whatsoever. I'm Endeavor. It doesn't really make a difference to me. But I like also the fact that you have Deku's constant introspection here. He's like, about a year and a half ago, I was endowed with more things that I could count by All Might. I was given my quirk. I was given entry to UA. All these valuable experiences. Everything was kind of hitting me at the same damn time. But now what he says to himself is, right now my maximum speed is simply doing things one by one, which I think is good and I approve of. Then the next part of the chapter is basically Fuyumi gives Endeavor a call. Fuyumi being the eldest daughter of, possibly the eldest child, I think, of Endeavor. She's definitely the eldest daughter because she's the only daughter. And she calls Endeavor. She's like, I didn't realize, you didn't tell me that first you were training Shoto. You didn't tell me he was there with his friends. But also, if you'd like, why don't you bring them all over here today to her house? I'll splurge dinner for everyone. So I like the fact that she's actually willing to put in the effort as well. It's not all just on Endeavor. She's willing to put in the effort to reciprocate with him and to help him become a better dad through accepting his efforts to become a better dad. So she's invited him down for dinner. I have a feeling something's going to go down here. But, it's not one of those mangas where something needs to go down every chapter. So it might just be a nice family moment. But that's how the chapter ends. I think we're on hiatus next week, but I enjoyed this chapter. I didn't expect the review to go this long, but it has. Anyway, let me know what you guys thought of the chapter. Let me know what you guys thought of the review. Once again, Endeavor's an amazing teacher. And just because of the fact that he actually had to learn to use his... I don't know what that was either, but he had to actually learn to utilize his quirk, chunk it, and, gain control of it in phases, in steps, iterations, whereas All Might was very different in that sense. They're both good teachers, but All Might is more suited to someone who is just simply able to utilize their quirk. Maybe even someone like Bakugo, but when it comes to fine control, that's where Endeavor comes in and is able to be a better teacher. So let me know what you guys thought of the chapter. Let me know what you guys thought of the review. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff, and I'll see you guys in a bit.